Good morning, this is Dusty here, and I'm going to offer you today what I'll call flat-picking guitar technique for modern mountain dulcimer. I was asked to give a lesson similar to this at my local dulcimer group, and I thought it might be helpful if I put things down on video. Now, what I'm going to show you here today, I'm calling an overview because although I'll go pretty slowly in the beginning to get you up to sort of the building blocks of what you need to move on from there. Once I get to that point, I'm going to move pretty quickly and show you a whole bunch of techniques that you can add to that basic back and forth strumming pattern or picking pattern that will allow you to play pretty complex rhythms and even some pretty fast single note runs. Now, the technique I'm going to show you here today is not a traditional way of playing the dulcimer. And there are lots of great dulcimer players, far better than I am, who do not play this using this technique at all. So in no way should my putting this video together be taken as me telling you that you have to play this way or you ought to play this way. All I can tell you is that there are lots of modern dulcimer players who do play in this way, and it allows you to accomplish certain goals pretty easily. Once you get that steady back and forth rhythm of your right hand, it's much easier to stay in rhythm. You don't really have to think about where you are, whether you're on an upbeat or a downbeat. Your hand is doing that. Once you get some stress going on, you know exactly what beat you are on in the measure. So this technique will really help you a lot, I think. If you want to play in the style of, say, David Schnauffer and Stephen Seifert, Mark Gilston, Aaron O'Rourke, and people like that, even Larry Conger, they all do a variation of this right-hand technique. And I hope that if you want to learn that, my video here will help you. Thank you. The first thing I'd like to talk about is how to hold a pick. I've seen many dulcimer players who hold a pick, a very long pick that sticks way out, probably a pick version of a quill, really, in a sense. They hold it by the very end, a lot of it sticks out, and they strum very quickly across all the strings of the dulcimer. That's wonderful if you want to play in that style. Don Petty strums like that, and he's a far better dulcimer player than I will ever be. I wish I could play that way. But you also notice that people who play in that style never pick single strings. And so what I want to show you is a method of using a pick that will enable you to strum across all the strings or just do single note runs, and your right hand technique doesn't have to change at all. So the first thing we have to learn is how to hold our pick. The way I like to demonstrate this, you put out your hand as though you're going to shake someone's hand, and you curl around your front fingers. Then balance the pick. You don't actually have to balance it here, but it works for demonstration purposes. Balance that pick on the side of your finger and put your thumb across. Now, a few things to note here. First of all, the pick is actually not on the. I'm not holding the pick with the fat pad of my index finger, but it sits on the side, and then my thumb goes over the top. That's the first thing to notice. Secondly, notice how very little of the pick actually sticks out beyond my finger. The vast majority of the pick is wedged in there between the side of my index finger and the pad of my thumb. It's probably been over a decade since I lost a pick while playing. You know, I had a pick fly out of my hand while I was playing. And I think the reason for that is certainly not that I hold the pick really tight, because I don't. I hold the pick very loose. But so much of the pick is there in contact with the skin of my fingers that very little of it is actually out. It's very secure there, even when you're holding it very loosely. So that's the first thing, how to hold the pick. Now, there are also some tricks to strumming. Now, again, the basic building block that I want to show you today is just strumming back and forth in a really even pattern. And then we're going to learn some variations that you can do once you have that. To get that really smooth strum, there are a few techniques you need. And I'm going to demonstrate this just because it's easy to do so on an octave dulcimer. First of all, you don't want the pick to get caught in the strings. You want it to move really easily across the top of the strings. It really just rubs across the top of the strings. You don't really need to get down in there and pluck the strings. There are a few ways of doing that, or a few techniques that you can employ to facilitate that. First, angle the pick. In fact, there are three different ways I'll show you to angle the pick. The first is angle the pick away from the strum, so or actually toward the strum if you think about it. So as I'm strumming out, and I'm going to exaggerate this, and in fact I won't even hold the pick as I normally would, just so you can see how I'm angling it. When I'm strumming out, I angle the pick so the top is out and the point is back towards me. When I come in, I angle it in the other direction. Again, that's an exaggerated version, but you'll want to do something like that when you pick. excuse me, when you strum and when you pick. But especially for strumming, you really want to get a smooth stroke that barely touches the strings and just glides right across the top. So that angle helps you do that. Another way of angling the pick is by turning it, so that rather than the pick hitting, at a 90-degree angle to the strings, you turn it so that the side actually hits the strings. And if you look, I'll put this dulcimer down for a moment. If you ever look at one of my old picks, you see on this side, the pick gets worn on the front, and on this side it gets worn on the back. That is, I turn it this way. As I pick, only the edge of the pick is, as I strum rather, only the edge of the pick is actually going across the strings. So those are two ways of angling the pick to get a nice smooth strum. The third way is that, in addition to those two, I often don't go straight across the dulcimer, but I go off on angles. And I heard a jazz guitarist discussing this picking pattern, the strumming pattern. He said he doesn't go back and forth so much as he does make a circle. What that means is he's going around again at those angles across the fretboard. And if you watch some really good dulcimer players, you'll see them. I just saw a Steven Seifert video, and that's really what his hand was doing, was kind of moving around in a circle. So those are three ways of angling the pick so that you can move across the strings very easily. You don't want to get the pick stuck in there. You just want it to glide across the top. And again, in holding the pick, remember, very little of the pick actually sticks out past your finger. The vast majority of it sits there in between your thumb and the side of your index finger. Now, almost any introductory dulcimer lesson will start with how to strum once per beat. So what we want to do here is we'll assume we're in 4/4 time, although really this wouldn't change if we were playing a waltz or something, except in the number of strums per measure. And we're going to want to strum once per beat. We're going to strum out once per beat. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, and everything I do in this video, I don't want you to really pay attention to my left hand. This is all about right hand technique. So I have to demonstrate certain things and use my left hand, but please don't get caught up in my left hand. And when you do, keep in mind I have a 1.5 fret on here, as well as, where is it, an 8.5 fret. So don't let those confuse you. But if they are confusing you, then you're paying attention to my left hand, which you shouldn't do anyway. So please, this is all about right hand. Now, before you can go on and do anything else that I'm going to demonstrate for you today, you need to have a very steady strum, just once per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And most people figure this out, but I'm going to move this camera slightly. When you play guitar or mandolin, a lot of your strumming's in your wrist. For dulcimer, a lot of your strumming's in your elbow. So your elbow should just move out across. You notice how steady the rest of my hand and my wrist are. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, even with that strum alone, you can do some basic songs. Obviously, that was Mary Had a Little Lamb. One of the reasons we often begin teaching songs such as Boil Them Cabbage Down or Go Tell Aunt Rhody is that those songs have no eighth notes. And basically what we're doing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're playing quarter note strums. And those songs don't have any eighth notes, so we can do those songs with just the quarter note strums. cheated at the end and did an in-strum as well, but you get the point. That's a steady strumming out on the downbeat. That is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are quarter note strums. And you see already we can do some pretty simple songs. This, again, you need to master this before you can do anything else. So if this takes you 20 minutes or 20 weeks, however long it takes you, stop and work on that before you move on. Now, once you've mastered that out strum, and I should say that there's in the dulcimer world, there are some players whose main strum is in rather than out. And I don't think that matters. You could go 1, 2, 3. I know I've learned a lot from Peter Tomarup out here in California. His main strum, his strong strum is in. I think I saw a Larry Conjure video recently, and I noticed that his main strum was in. In that case, those people are just doing exactly the opposite of what I'm showing you today. So whenever I go out, they're going in. Whenever I go in, they're going out. But that really shouldn't matter. You should be able to reverse everything here, and it should work. In fact, in Mike Casey's book, Hands-on Dulcimer, he suggests that you learn to strum either way, so that you have both at your disposal. It's too late for me. I learned to play on the guitar and mandolin, even the ukulele, before I ever discovered the dulcimer. So I have ingrained habits already. But and a lot of people still do, even dulcimer players who didn't come from the guitar world, like Stephen Seifert and Aaron O'Rourke, their main strum is out as well. But once you have that basic out strum, you'll notice that your hand comes back each time. So you might as well add an in strum each time. We're going to try that now, and this is, again, the basic foundation for everything else I'm going to show. So if you can get this, you're really well on your way. So now, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'll go a little slower than that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, again, you have to master that before you can do anything else I'm going to show you. So if it takes you 20 minutes, 20 weeks, 20 months, however long it takes you to get a really steady back and forth strum, you need to put in the time and do that before you really attempt to master any of the other techniques here. Now, before I go on, let me give you a little secret. In popular music, in folk music, in jazz, in blues, almost all the time, the rhythm that you see written out in standard music notation or in tablature is not exactly right. It is expected that you will swing when you play. What I mean by that is that if we do this back and forth, these eighth note strums, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, we're actually going to have the first of each eighth note pair last a little bit longer than the second one. It's not, for those of you who know music theory, it's not quite like a dotted eighth and a 16th, but it's in that direction. This is also, by the way, for you jazz aficionados, this is also where the term bebop comes from. Bebop, bebop. The bebop is supposed to be those eighth note pairs, and the first one, the B, lasts a little bit longer than the bop. So instead of going 1, 2, and 3, and 4, we're actually going to 1, now, once you have this basic back and forth rhythm, very, very steady, it should keep time for you. It should, you're not going to have to worry about, oh, am I on a downbeat or am I on an upbeat? Your hand is doing that for you. And in fact, you'll see some instructors, when they teach songs, when there isn't supposed to be a strum, they will refer to a ghost strum or an air strum or a phantom strum. And that's basically when your hand is moving even though it's not actually strumming the strings. Because once you get used to this, your hand is actually going to be keeping time for you. But again, you need to work on this. Work on that for as long as it takes for you to really get it down. And then once you have that, you'll be able to do all these other really exciting things that I'm going to show in a moment that will really add or enable you to add a whole lot of rhythmic complexity to your playing.